Hi, so we've seen what's new in 11, and now we're going to look at some of the editing things, some of the new things in there, and also some of a way we can get in, and they've changed some things, how we can get in, conform a sequence and swap out to raw. Something you do quite a lot. I do this quite a lot in that sometimes you're given ProRes, and it might be the intention that while there are raw files or there are R3Ds around, maybe for whatever reason it's too hard to edit with those. There was, and I think this is changing, a perception if you're grading R3Ds it was too hard, it might be too difficult to conform, everything's going to be slow, it's going to take a long time to render. You know, so you may be in a situation where you're grading, you're sitting there working on ProRes, and you'll run into issues and you go, oh, I wish I had some raw files. And you need to know ways to get back into those raw files. So let's look at some of the editing things that we can now do. Let's put some clips. There's the ProRes clips here. And we will put those into the media pool. I'm going to do one thing before I start. I'm just going to remove this clip here. Remove selected clips. In here, into color, this was the same in version 10. Use local version for new clips in timeline. Now, if you've ever had trouble, it used to be little red boxes and little red linking arrows with clips linking together. This was like this in early days of Resolve, and actually removed it in 10. So every time you add media, it's always its own clip. Now, if you want clips linking from like a 30-second TVC to a 45 to a 60, sharing grades, you have to uncheck this. By default, it always uses a local grade, which means it's okay, but you have to do quite a lot of copying and pasting of grades around. Use local. So I'm going to uncheck that. No tick box apply. I'm then going to add in my Kelly ProRes material into there. So we've got a lot of ProRes, 1920 1080. In terms of editing, we can create a timeline, which I've done here. It's just a simple timeline, and there's one clip in it. Now, this is shared. So this was slightly different, and there's a slightly different view for it. This is the class project name, so that's just what I've called this. That sits up there now. This is class 2. If I want to see my media, I go there. If I want to select a clip to edit, I go there. So I double click it, forces it into here. I can then scrub it or play it. These are quite short, so I can use my I and my O keys in there. And I can just drag that down to the timeline, pretty much the same. Add another one, and then you can do the same thing in here. And you can then drag it up here. You could then insert, do an overwrite or replace, fit to fill. I can do that, put one there. Let's put another close up and put that into here. Just drag that down. And we've got a gap there. If you use your X key, it marks the gap. And I can pick another shot. Let's see if we've got one more of her back down the timeline there. Drag it and use the fit to fill. That will fill that, and it will automatically obviously do a speed change, whatever it needs to do to make it fit. If we're looking at our speed change, and we see there is a little rev counter there, or speedometer I suppose you could call it. If you select that clip, I'll go back to my pointer there, select that and then go to the toolbox. It will open up any of the properties that we have on this clip. Speed, as you remember in 10, used to be in here, not there anymore, and now it has its own little attribute box, which is change clip speed, and you can see there it's 65 or whatever it randomly did its fit to fill. In there you could go reverse speed, obviously freeze frame, or change these things. But that now lives in there. If I wanted to change the clip on mic here, right click, I can change speed clip there, and I could make it slower. Type in a value, 50. And I could choose to ripple the sequence, yes, change. So it ripples the sequence. So obviously if that wasn't the last shot, it would ripple everything down, or I could keep within the same sequence so it's not changing my edit. So I've got an option there to do that. Obviously, if you want to slip a shot, use your slip tool, click in the middle. You are then slipping within that shot there. So that's quite neat to be able to do that, but just be careful. It's caught me out a few times. If you move that too far there and you're chatting to your director, you are then rolling the end of the edit and you come out of it and you don't notice, you have then re-edited someone's show. Fine if it's your show and you know what you're doing, but sometimes from a colorist point of view, a lot of the time we're not actually cutting, but we're adding new shots, VFX shots, replacing shots, which we do have to slip sometimes if the code is wrong. If you do not realize and you do this, you are in fact changing the cut. It can be dangerous. Look out for that. It is a multi-function tab. Let's add another shot in there because something else somebody pointed me out the other day that wasn't working in 10, which appears to be working now, which is good. Let's drag the whole of, not Mike, we'll put a new one, but we'll put one of her in a wide shot. Drag that wide shot down to there. If you want to razor that, you can razor it. Go straight into here now and then do a speed change into there. So select that, right click, retime clip. And retime clip will come up with a, let's just widen up that. Then I could go here and click on this one and just change that speed to 150. And that will then run at 150. You can put speed bumps in here as well. So if I want to add a speed bump, not a speed bump, speed point, that's it. So now in the middle of this clip, that can be 150 there, and this side can be, let's slow it down. Let's go to 25. So quicker, slower. There. So that's for doing speed ramps and points in there. Did you like that? Change it down. The thing that a lot of people have liked to have seen it is audio crossfade. Being able to do that with audio and have those. Adding some newer transitions, the just overall look of this is looking better, being able to just drag into there, and now you can right click and change that. If you click on it, you get up here in your inspector the duration of it, the alignment of it, and you can also change it. You don't have to drag and redrag, you can drop down from there. Ease, that's new. Ease in, ease out of that. Center on edit, start on edit. So personally, I've said I don't edit a lot of things. I just know the basics, and for what I do, I know how to fix things, put shots in, and I've cut some small things. From the people who are using it though, that are editors, are saying it's good. They've improved a lot of things, and you know, it's now there for people to use. One of the big things that I think some of my clients or some of the people will like is transitions. I've got Sapphire loaded here, so I can load a Sapphire transition. I can do something like this. This is a Sapphire transition, and just plonk that one. This won't work. Let's just definitely make sure I've got enough here to select that transition. See one that would work. Speckle. There. So now you can have speckles on transitions coming up the start from edits. I know the people who do reality shows quite often are using these on their transitions. So if you have spent the $2,000 or whatever it is, you can use Sapphire or any other plugins on transitions. Good. So that's probably enough on the editing. Obviously, as I said before, reading the manual. If you're really keen on the editing, get in there, give it a good working out. Let me bring in an XML. So I've been grading on this show like there. We haven't actually graded, we've just done some cuts. We have a timeline there. What I could do, I could say, oh, I brought this little timeline in and I'm just going to apply a little grade, just more than anything to show you a way of how the grades ripple through the different versions. So if I were to make all of this short film all quite warm like that, and then our blacks, we're going to fight against it, and we're going to do some look like that. So a little bit blue there, and we're going to fight again there. And I want that to go through everything. A quick way of doing that is, if I put this shot into my gallery, grab still, it's in there, and then I select all of these, then I just middle click. That will fire this sort of funky warm grade into all of these. I'm playing around, I've done a little bit of editing, the director says, oh, looks quite good, not a bad look. Have we got an EDL yet or an XML? Because a lot of the time you're always waiting for that. We're always waiting for lock-off. Sometimes we never get it. And director says, well, if we've got it, I'd like to see it. Let's conform the show. Okay, this stays here. This time I'll just save this like that. What I'm also going to do is turn on my auto save and put it to backup project. I'll put it on 5 minutes and see where it starts to list backups here. I'm just interested to see how many lists we can get in before the end of this lesson. Edit. Pretty much the same. We go to timeline, right click, import, XML, go to drama. This is where it will be. When you get the media, you've got obviously a media folder there where we've got some media that we'll work on. Not all of it is in here, but in assets. Assets typically is where all your XMLs, offlines, reference stills, audio, all of those things will live. This is Kelly 2 XML, open. Now automatically set project settings. No, because I've set the project settings, I like what they are, that's where I want it to be, that's how we're going to finish. Automatically import source clips into the media pool. I don't need to do that because I've already found them and I know where they are and they're there. Use sizing information, yes. That means if the editor's done a resize, I will get that information. Okay. Now it's come up here with a log. And mainly what these are all audio files. Oh, it's missing an R3D for some reason. That's weird, seeing as we've only got ProRes in the media pool. So these are WAVs. I'm not going to worry too much about this, but don't ignore this log because sometimes the log gives you the information of what shots you don't have. That might not be your fault. You may not have been given the shots. So let's have a look and see what it's given us. Sometimes it looks like that and you go, oh, hasn't worked, it's given us nothing. But if you look closely, we're just at the end of the timeline. So these shots, some of these audio shots that have none come through. Oh, we're not worried too much about that. We got something missing there. I'm not sure what that is. That might be a VFX shot or something. How can I tell? Best thing to do is get a reference movie. Vitally important. If I'm grading, I haven't edited this show, as you could see. Somebody's cut it for me. I have no idea if it's right, do I? It looks vaguely right to me. Yeah? What have you noticed? Look. That has the grade that I did earlier. That has the grade that I did earlier. This one doesn't. Some of these do have the grade. It's interesting. So the ones I graded in that little test temp line that I edited are getting my grade. It was good, saved me doing it. That one does. Offline. Really important. You ask for one and you stipulate, I want an XML and I want a reference movie. Doesn't necessarily have to be a full res one. It can be like an H.264 one. So let's go into assets, and I've got Kelly 2 offline. Right click, add as offline reference clip. It has to go in that way. You have to see this checkerboard down here, otherwise it will not work. Do not add it 100% to the media pool by dragging it down. Can't work that way. Into edit, against Kelly 2, because this is the one we want to reference to. This is this timeline. Right click, link offline reference clip, Kelly 2 offline. You do not see an offline checkerboard here. That is because the inspector is open. Now you can select this. Now you can see your offline. Ah. Why might that be? Here's our master. I play that. It's saying there's an offline there, but there's nothing there. We've seen it because I've just added it. I can go here and we can play it. Look what time code the offline starts at. 1:35:14. That doesn't sound right, does it? So you come here, check out your master conform by scrubbing it all the way to the start, and that starts at 000. All right? So there's your problem, but you can change that. Right click, there goes my auto saving. In here, clip attributes, time code, and just make all of those zeros. You just hold down the 0, it will put in all your semicolons in there, all your colons, okay? That will change that to 0. You go to edit, click there and select offline. You will get an offline match. Really important that you do that. Now you can compare my grade with my conform with the offline, which could be H.264, it could be anything. Now what about these? We can expand this up and say, oh, it's looking for an R3D file. So maybe when they cut somehow with one R3D. Maybe they cut with some ProRes, some R3D, and because the R3Ds are not in the pool, it can't find them. So what I'm going to do, seeing as I don't think that this is going to be the best to degrade with anyway, I can see how it's clipping out on the side there of his head. I've got black on the back of her hair. I'm probably better off with all R3Ds. So let's do this. I'm going to make a new bin. I'm going to call that red. There. So I've just gone plus here. It's given me a new bin, called it red, and I want to find Kelly R3D originals. Pop them in. There's only 4 takes. They're reasonably long takes, so there they are. Go to here. Find the missing shot. Hang on. There it is. There's the offline. There's the R3D. Fixed. So as soon as you put something in the media pool, it's going to false conform it straight away. It's going to go, hang on, I know where that shot goes, I'm going to put it in. And if the code is right, it's going to put it in at the right spot, which is useful. But now I've got the problem that, I've got R3D, the timeline is fixed. Just scrub that down if you want to see everything. I can then decide, well, how do I swap the whole thing out? I don't want the ProRes now, let's just work with the R3Ds. what you need to do, you need to select the whole timeline and turn that false conform off. So it's not fighting it. You're going to do a manual conform. So turning that off won't try and false conform. Right? It's going to give you a bunch of these warnings come up now, these little triangles, saying I've now detected an R3D. So if we want to look at what they mean, let's just have a quick look before we bring in the R3Ds. There. So just right click on any one of them. Select that shot there, right click. There. And it will come up and it will say, oh, we've detected another shot. Okay. I'm not going to do that though. What I am going to do is select all, turn off the false conform, right click on Kelly and say reconform from bin. And it says, Warren, you have 2 bins. Now the only way I know that is if I just click on this arrow. These bins are the same media pool bins that we set up at the beginning. Yeah. Sometimes people open them and go, well, I've only got a master. This is saying, where do you want me to look for the files? In the master bin? No, in the red bin. The red bin are the shots we now want to use. Okay. If we come back out here, and if you haven't already done so, double click underneath the thumbnail and they should all say red. Now what you will notice now is that I have this little red box above each of these shots here on mic. That means if I make a grade, cool, look what it's doing to all of these. Why is that? That is because he's coming now from the same source red file. Now this is a thing that people had a lot of problems with. Not that this works like this, but when they wanted to undo that and they didn't want the same colour, that was causing problems. That's why it's now an option. So if I was to grade this lady here and make her a different colour, you can see if our lighting conditions were exactly the same, or typically it was a documentary, a little bit more work on our grading, we grade one shot, we've graded it all, which is fantastic in docos. Because a lot of the time that's controlled lighting. It doesn't change too much. We can grade one, grade it all, and we really get a feel of the show without having to copy, paste, or right click, or go to the still store to get a grade. So if I want Mike now to look like he wanted on the ProRes, middle click the still, we'll fire the grade into there, and then it will fire it into all of these. That's obviously a different take. I want that grade on Mike's wide shot, middle click his wide shot, his close up, big close puts it into that one. Same deal. Now this is the advantage of having the shots all linked. What about if I conform another one? They say, oh, we've got another cut, import, XML. Let's do this. Cut down XML, open. No new media. I want it to link with the media we've got. Let's see what happens. Not the ProRes, the red. Okay. Cool. So now I have a cut down version which is sharing the same grade. Saves me having to go in the still store, copy the grades. If there's tracking there, all the tracking will be there. Everything will be there. So if you understand this workflow, it's really good. What about now though? I'm working on this shot and these two are great being the same. But the last one I want to be different. What you can do a couple of things. You can make a separate version for just this shot. Add version. And I'll just make that completely different on right there. These are still linked. 1 and 3. So their color will stay the same. They're linked. This one is now not, because it's a version of when you render, the grade that sits on the top is the one you will get. The alternative thing to do is to go back to the other version, previous version. Once you're happy, or you're 75% happy with all the grade, we now want to start putting different shapes and adding some little touches, or maybe a secondary key to one shot, not to the other. We need to unlink. So we right click on any thumbnail, and instead of using remote grades, because that's what we're using, they're remote because they're working here, they're working there, they're working up on the other timeline. Yeah. So what this means is that a remote grade is working across every timeline we have, including that little editing timeline I made. Right click and say copy remote grades to local grades. The red boxes will go. I can now come and change this shot. And I can turn the saturation all the way down, and it's black and white. But these will stay as they were. This one can go different like that. Will that then affect Kelly cut down? No, because this is still using remote grades. Okay. So this is a good feature. So then this timeline is unlinked, which means you can do whatever you want. This is quite good if you have a 60-second commercial, a 30 and a 15. Then the director has her cut. She wants that to look different, not referencing any of the other grades. Now, in here we have, I think, media we've got our other options. So we've still obviously got our ProRes shots in our master. That doesn't matter, and then we might not need those anymore. Okay, we might not need to go for those. We can leave them there, not an issue. We're using our reds. Obviously, the thing to consider now, as soon as we've added red to our media pool, is the same as we looked before, where we need to check on our red debayer. Now we've got red shots coming in. How are we going to look at them? What color space we're going to look at them? Can we run at half res? Do we need to put it down to quarter res here in our red settings? So consider that, because sometimes if you're on a lesser powerful system and you suddenly chuck a load of red files at it, it's going to say, whoa, hang on, it's not going to play. You could get a few different issues. So it's probably a good idea to do that. I didn't do that. Just to check on your raw files before you go and pass some red shots into it. That way, then you can always know they're going to play okay. You're not going to have a problem when you've got the ProRes or the red files. ProRes obviously going to play quite well. The other thing to consider, if you do this and you go to your and you say, oh yeah, I want to work in clip and I want to work in red log film because it's going to give me the most latitude, and I'm going to delete all of this color correction, reset all grades and nodes. But I want to use the grade that we started on when we did our test grading of mic. I want to use that. So you middle click it and you say, well, that doesn't look like it looked like before. Right click, play the still, do that. Why is that different? That is because the red file, now you've changed the raw, is in a completely different color space, red log film. Whereas the ProRes was probably made at red color 3, red gamma 3, I'd say, for example. So any grade you did on there is going to look different. Okay. The other thing I just want to show you while we're in here before we get out of this is leave that reference wipe, and I want to go back to Kelly 2 and right click on the still, on the viewer, reference mode offline. Now I can compare grade, the green grade, with the offline grade. That should be the same as the offline grade here. So if there is a little look applied on that, I will see it in the offline and I will get an idea, oh, that's what we need to do. So let's come down to this one. Let's see if we've got an offline for that. Assets. Oh, we've got some VFX. We'll look at that as well, see what we've got in there. Let's add my offline here. Right click, add offline. Come out of there. Obviously could have the wrong code again as well. Link offline clip. I've now got two clips. One is work in progress offline grade. So okay, they're telling us there is a grade, and we can see that the offline editors had a bit of a play with a look, and that doesn't look too bad. There's a bit of a warm in our highlights. A little bit over the top, but may well suit the style. Let me have a look and see what's in that VFX folder as well. Media. VFX. It's DPX. So that's that first shot, isn't it? So let's see whether we can stick that in. So it doesn't look like that's that commercial. It's this one. That shot there, I think. Select it. You won't see anything in here while this is selected. Okay, so what you need to do is to come here, and I normally try and keep things in bins, so I'll do that, and I'll call this VFX like that, and then I'll bring these two shots in. These are DPX now. A lot of the times you'll get DPX if they are VFX shots, and come to that to edit, select the VFX bin, and I'll see it. What I can do is double click, then puts it into my viewer, and then I can do the right click, force conform with selected media pool clip. I will pop that in there. I then need to go to the offline and see, and if that is wrong, because sometimes you will get VFX shots that are just 0 time code, obviously go into your slip tool and then you'll be able to slip that. That's been done perfectly. So that's inserted a DPX, and we can see that here, DPX into a red timeline. What have I got to do, Jim, before the end of this show? Check the autosave. Let's have a look. So let's go back here, there, and we were checking to backup project, list backups, and there are a list of backups. So it's time stamping these. So you could load one and go back. Now this is loading in a separate place to where you're actually hitting save. So if you're hitting save and saving into your project, that is where it's going. So you're manually saving. Let's close that down. When you're manually hitting save, which I do quite a lot, it's saving into here. That one, R201 editing XML. When you have that project up, it's also saving to another location. There. Some people like this because they can go back and go, oh, we really did well there, or I want to go back. Cool. Thanks for looking at this. This I never particularly got worked on. I'm glad to see that's working now. That is a useful thing. I know a lot of people like that. You can list the list of backups that you have. We're going to be moving on to doing some primary grading on this and some other footage, then going through and looking at some secondaries. Thanks for watching. Cheers.